Hello ladies and gentlemen, today we are diving straight into the build of the 172nd Hawker Hurricane Mark 1, and this build is for the group build group that I am part of, wherein we're building aircraft and armor kits for the 80th anniversary of the D-Day invasion group build. So here you can see I have gone straight ahead and built the undercarriage assembly of the gear bay door structure, and all the structural elements are added in as per the instructions, and I should say the fit is absolutely perfect. Now this is an Airfix 172nd kit and the fit is expected to be good. Airfix stands up to its name, and here you can see that I am fixing the upper and lower halves of the wings together, and you can see that the fit is pretty nice. There's hardly any gap between the two halves, and so I use my standard Fevikwik cyanoacrylate glue to fix the parts together, and then I bring the cloth pegs to the rescue as I need to hold the wing parts together while they set. Now here in step number 6 you can see that the seat is fixed on this bulkhead at the back of the seat, and this is part number E1. But here's something that I would want you to note. So this is what E1 looks like, and you can see that it's got just very basic detailing inside it. Now on sprue E you find this double blade propeller, which was the Hurricane Mark 1, the original Hurricane Mark 1, and it also has this rear fuselage underside. It's got the rudder out here as part number E2. It's also got 2 exhausts here as part number E6, and of course it's then got the tail wheel assembly with the propeller assembly. But now have a look at this, an identical sprue D with a 3-blade propeller. So the 3-blade propeller, I believe, is the later version of the Hurricane Mark 1. It's got a different kind of tail wheel here, the rudder assembly, and look at the detailing in this seat and the underside rear fuselage half assembly. So I'm going to stick to sprue D, and I'm going to use this part number 5 from sprue D to assemble the seat, as I'll be going with the Hurricane Mark 1 later version. And here you can see that the rudder pedals and the control column have been assembled on the cockpit floor. These were really small parts, but they really give a lot of detail into the cockpit. I then cut off the seat from the sprue, the 2 fuselage halves, and finally resorted to painting of the interiors of the cockpit, starting with the cockpit floor. And here you can see me dry brushing Fevicryl sap green onto the cockpit floor, followed by the same dry brushing onto the seat and also the bulkhead of the seat and the interiors of the cockpit. I did not resort to using my airbrush for this purpose because I was just lazy. The instructions tell you to paint leather color on this upper part of the seat bulkhead, but I did not have that, so I resorted to Humbrol 63 for this. And then I used these 3 Sharpies, a black, brown, and a silver one. The black one was used to detail the control column, with the brown one to detail the seat cushion, and the silver one was used to detail the rudder pedals on the cockpit floor. Now once the painting was done, the seat was assembled onto the bulkhead like so. It just sits on those 2 divots on top of the bulkhead, and then the cockpit floor assembly was added into the center part of the wing assemblies. The cockpit instrument panel decal was then fixed on the instrument panel sprue part, and then this entire assembly was fixed onto the seat bulkhead like so at an angle, and then the fuselage halves were closed up together. Now, the closing of the two fuselage halves presented a little bit of a challenge because of that bulkhead, and I really had to make very fine adjustments in order to make it fit, because the instrument panel connection to the bulkhead is very, very flimsy, and I had to be extra careful while fiddling with it just to ensure that it doesn't break while doing that. The wing assembly fixes onto the fuselage from the bottom, and you have to really carefully bring it upwards, ensuring that the control column doesn't get knocked out by the seat, as you can see here, because that's how the instructions show you that it has to be fixed. This was a very tedious part. Of course, here in the video you see that I've done it in one go, but it took me quite a few attempts, ensuring that I don't knock the control column over by the seat while fixing the wing underside onto the fuselage. The rear underside of the fuselage attaches pretty good, and you've got a very nasty gap out here in the wing assembly to the fuselage on the underside, and this will later have to be addressed with some filler. Here you can see me then fixing the rudder with cyanoacrylate glue, and this was a pretty simple, straightforward assembly. Right, moving to the radiator filter assembly. This is also pretty straightforward. It's got two parts, one in the center and one comes in the front. These two parts basically have divots on top of them, and these divots basically go into the notches on the underside of the fuselage, as you will see shortly once I assemble the front part of the radiator, which is the intake part, onto the remaining part of the radiator. Okay, so there is this exhaust outlet cylinder pipe assembly, which is basically fit in the center of this of the undercarriage gear bay door, and here you can see me doing just that. Gives a nice bit of detail inside the undercarriage gear bays. I then fixed the tail wheel, and basically that completed the assembly. It's begun to look more like a Hurricane. I then masked off the cockpit with a tissue paper and then got it ready for painting. So for the white portion on the underside of the wing, I used this paint number 400 white, and then I primed the entire upper surface of the aircraft with a black primer, and then went ahead with some squiggling. This is in order to show some fading effects. So a black primer and then some squiggling, and then I used my khaki brown color to paint the first base coat of the camouflage pattern, and I painted very light coats of this, and then once that had dried, I used blue tack to mask off the camo pattern, and then began painting the olive drab, which is again Fevicryl sap green mixed with black to tone it down and make it that olive color. And here you can see me painting the olive drab on the wings. And this is the result of the white and black spray, and as you can see, the masking line has come out nice, and it's actually a nice glossy black out here and a nice white on the underside of the right wing. The canopy framing being really small, I painted it by hand, and then I began working on the decals with my standard procedure of applying the decals, watered down PVA glue, and then sliding the decals after dipping them in warm water, and then cleaning off the excess with a cotton Q-tip. Now the roundel decals were a little too thick, whereas these JXG markings were really thin, and I had to be extra careful with these because, as you can see here, it almost starts falling apart when you drag it. The reason being that there is very little decal film around them, and you have to be extra careful while fixing and aligning or moving them on the model itself. And here you can see the difficulty I was facing with this. Even the fin flash, this was slightly larger than the actual surface of the rudder, and I eventually had to trim it down a little bit. And then I went in for some brown chalk wash just to show a little bit of weathering. This aircraft airframe was actually used a little bit in combat, so I wanted to show it a little weathered, not too heavy. And here you can see me cleaning off the dried up chalk wash with a cotton Q-tip to refine the weathering. Right, when everything else was drying, I thought it's a good time to start painting the pilot. And here you can see me detailing the pilot with a brown jacket, blue pants, black shoes, and a yellow life vest. Finally, after everything was ready, I decided to fix the undercarriage. I usually don't make wheels down aircraft, but this time I thought for a Second World War aircraft, it's better to have it wheels down. And the assembly once again was very precise, and I really liked how it positioned itself on its three wheels. Final step was to attach the propeller, which I had painted off camera, detailed it with a red spinner, and finally attached the canopy, and that completed the build. So here's the final finished article: Hawker Hurricane Mark 1 JXG, serial number L1679. This was last flown by Pilot Officer Paul Ritchie of the Royal Air Force. It was shot down, it crashed, and was written off, though Pilot Officer Paul Ritchie went on with a very illustrious Royal Air Force career, but this airframe crashed in 1939. The exploits of the Hurricane during the Second World War are overshadowed by those of the Spitfire being much more aesthetically pleasing to the eye with its elliptical wing shape than the Hurricane. But the majority of the brunt of the Blitzkrieg by Hitler's Luftwaffe was borne by the Hurricane squadrons, and I think there were more than about 20 Hurricane squadrons that participated in the Battle of Britain, and most of the Luftwaffe aircraft that were shot down were Hurricane kills. But due to the fact that the Hurricanes were a much older design based on a biplane design, the Spitfires, of course, gained more popularity, being a more recent design and much sleeker and faster than the Hurricanes. Of course, later models of the Hurricane were much more powerful and faster and could deliver much more lethal punch, but Hawker's more capable aircraft like the Typhoons and the Tempests basically spelt the doom for the Hurricane's career. So, rant over, model completed. I hope you enjoyed the video. This is a very basic kit, and I would recommend it for a beginner and an advanced modeler. It's a pleasure to build, builds up quickly, very little filler required, and I would definitely recommend it for all types of modelers. Please like and subscribe, and don't forget to comment. I'll see you again in the next video. Bye bye.